rebuilding confidence, and harmonizing with nature. With over 4 decades of changing lives, your self-discovery archaeologist, get ready to be the best of you with your host, Beverly Zymet.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Beverly Zymet Show, where being that best you just got easier. My guest today, calling in from Edmonton, Canada, is Holland. Welcome to the show again.
Thanks so much, Beverly. Nice to be here.
I know, this is so exciting. I love having return guests because there's just so much great information out there for people, and wow, now is the time, right? Because we look at where we're coming into the end of the year of 2020, this amazing, crazy 2020, right? That is definitely going to be hindsight forever, right? But
For sure.
It has brought so many beautiful things, when one door closes, hundreds of doors open. But again, it's where are we with ourselves, right? So today we're going to talk a little bit about intuition and being intuitive and listening to that gut feeling, right? So Holly, share with the audience what your experience has been around your intuitiveness.
Oh, that it's something that I have actually only tapped into about in the last year and a half.
Okay.
And it's just been so fun. As you say, we've always been guided by just that gut feeling.
Right.
And I mean, I knew that it was always strong, but there were other things. I guess there were just things that I was conscious of, but like even people like spirit being around, that's something that I wasn't so familiar with.
Right.
And like I often would think that it would be just like your clothes even touching you, but often people will find that spirit is that close to them. They'll actually brush up against you. So
Right. And when that first starts happening, you're like, what the heck? Right? It's like, what's out here? But when you open to that, because we are a spirit, right? And we've chosen to be in this solid skin bag, as I call it, right? That it's what the spirit travels around in to have experiences, and being able to come face to face with other human beings and stuff, and have that interaction, that social connectedness, right? And when you're looking at intuition, it's like that first meeting, right? We get an automatic response, right? And sometimes it's uncomfortable, and other times it's like, oh my gosh, I've known you all my life. Where have you been for the last 100 eons of time, So you have extremes, right? I'm sure you've been down that road. A lot of us have, but we don't understand why. Why is someone so familiar, and then why others are like, whoa, you're guarded, right?
Yep.
So when that happens to you, how do you feel, or if you have clients come to you and they say, this is happening and I'm not quite sure what it's all about, how do you explain that? What's your take on it?
The one area that like we talked about before, grief, and
Right.
like because my husband had died about 11 years ago. And so I have been talking with a lot of people about that. And I know myself, like, especially when I find when people get into intuition, sometimes they're not sure how to kind of, I call it, marry it up with religion.
Right, right.
And sort of like what happens with people after. And I know for myself and a lot of people that I've worked with, they find some comfort in knowing, there is something beyond, and
Right.
that it's not like once they're gone, they're not completely gone. You can still reach them.
Right.
So that, um, so how I don't have an exact way that I talk to every person, because as you're saying, like a lot of people are not as open to it.
Right.
So I just try to, I guess you'd say, sort of feel them out and see where, like, how open are they?
Yeah, where
And
their belief system, begins and ends, so to speak, right?
yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Like I really find, um, like it's often like one small thing that starts you thinking. Like actually, myself, one time I had gone to a class about pendulums,
Oh,
and
right.
I just love pendulums. Like I just think. So I guess maybe for me, and I think for a lot of people, maybe they need something material that you can, how you can. I'm not sure if all the people are as familiar with pendulums, but essentially you can have like it's kind of like a chart almost, and you
Right.
can, sometimes people will get like a yes or a no. They'll say, okay, if in this direction this means yes and this direction means no.
Hmm.
So for some people, if you can just ask some questions like that, and then of course, you ask some ones that are, is the sky blue? Like things that
Yeah, exactly. Hold
you're
on
going to
one
get.
second. I'm going to grab my pendulum real quick, right?
Okay, sure.
Yeah. I have several of them, right?
Hmm.
And I've used pendulums for a long time, right? And what's
Hmm.
really kind of nice is when the thing with a pendulum, with a lot of people think, oh, you're making it move. Well, the mind is very powerful, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so to really get the proper use of a pendulum, you
Hmm.
need to blank your mind. You need to move away from it, because you can actually, just let it be here and say, okay, I want you to turn clockwise, right? And
Hmm.
automatically there it goes clockwise. And you say, okay, now I want it to go counterclockwise. And look at that, right? And of
Hmm.
course, you can see my hands not moving, right?
Exactly.
So when you're doing this, you really need to focus away from. And how I teach people when they're starting with a pendulum is, okay, when you ask the question, get the consciousness out of the way, just start singing Mary Had a Little Lamb, right? And
Hmm.
then the higher consciousness can bring in what that truth is, so that you're not swaying it because you want it to go that way, because you think, oh yeah, that would be good for them, so I'll make it say yes. It's all done unconsciously,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
and and the same thing happens when with the intuitiveness, that we all have those hard gut feelings, sometimes. But
Yeah.
when we're channeling information for someone else, and that intuitiveness, it's that first thought, that instantaneous whatever, and again, when you're listening to your higher consciousness speak, right, and
Hmm.
you're asking these questions, take that first response you get, because if you stop and think about it, what happens? That little subconscious comes up there and says, whoa, wait a minute, where the heck do you think you're going? We ain't going there. Right?
Yeah. Very.
So you really have to be conscientious of what it is that you're doing and move the conscious mind out of the way, but
Hmm.
also take that immediate flash, bing, 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 so the subconscious doesn't interfere. Because as soon as you start thinking,
Hmm.
you don't get paid to think. Remember that. When people ask me, so what are you thinking about this? I say, I don't get paid to think.
Hmm.
Because you really don't. Because
No.
when you start that thinking process,
Hmm.
all your database of information comes up into that. How you
Hmm.
perceive it, because of the database of information, influences what comes out of here.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
right. So when you're following your intuition, you're just like an open channel, and it just comes in and you just speak as it comes,
Hmm.
right? And that's that truth. And it takes discipline.
Hmm.
It really takes discipline. So when you're learning to pay attention to your own higher consciousness speaking, your soul essence, your God essence connections, right? When that's happening, you take that first thought that comes in, and when working with a client, I say, okay, I'm going to ask you a series of questions. I don't want you to think. I want you to just respond. What's the first thing that comes into place? Yes or no, yes or no, yes or no, yes or no, right? And they'll go, and then all of a sudden they stop, and it's like, whoa, now you're thinking. Now you're altering what you think needs to be heard, and now you're getting a false reading here. So what was that first? And when they start that initial, like, wow, now there's no space for doubt to come in, because doubt brings in what that buyer's remorse, that we call it, and you start justifying your choices and your beliefs again. So really paying attention. You want to clean up this mess that we've created, right? From stored database of old information that's outdated. To become that better you, then be honest with yourself. You can lie to the world. It don't matter. But where you need to stop lying is with yourself and really be honest there, right? So if you found that, when you're working with yourself, where you caught yourself starting to go off and all this other stuff?
Oh, totally. And also, like, just even the channeling part, I went to take some training in channeling, and I wondered, like, of course, like self-doubt, that's a big one. And,
wow, yes.
I was asking myself, like, is that something like that? Is it possible? And then you realize, once you get into it, then you realize, oh, I've been channeling my whole life, and the words for it, right? Like, sometimes you would think, well, it was my, oh no, I was just thinking. Well, no. And like, I remember thinking to I would get this to myself, stop thinking that. But I didn't realize it was channeling, just exactly how you described it. Yeah. We just, like, my best way of getting information is through automatic writing.
Oh yeah, that's really pretty unique. It is, because you just write. I know when I'm writing my books and stuff, it's like my brain gets ahead of my fingers, and you're going, and I complete a chapter. I mean, I complete chapter after chapter before I go back to edit or anything, because again, that channel is open and it's just flowing. The information is flowing in the manner it needs to. And so you just stay with it. If you stop that flow, it's like putting up a dam, and then to get back into it is like not so much, right? So you let that flow, so that automatic writing can be very, very, very crucial in what the information is that's coming to you, right?
Yeah, very much so. Yes, I know I've sure enjoyed it, and it just I just have found there, I've unraveled some of the things that just in my whole life that I would be wondering, like, why do I do this? Why do I do this? Why do I say this? I don't know. Like, sometimes then like sometimes I'll be at something, and then I'll be leaving, and I'll be thinking, now, where did that idea come from?
Right.
Like, even when spirit actually speaks through you, sometimes you're just going like, I'm sure I didn't have that information, but
yeah, it's like, where'd that come from? And again, when you really start to open it, it becomes more comfortable, and it runs on autopilot now, and so you've learned how to quiet the subconscious, so that the higher consciousness can just kind of come in with that flow. But it takes discipline, it takes understanding, finding out how you are getting in your own way. I have an honor of being on a summit coming in January. It's called Smashing Self-Sabotage, right?
okay.
So when you look at that self-sabotage, again, that goes back into what? It goes back into not trusting yourself and doubting yourself. So trust and doubt, they run side by side. They're kind of like at opposite ends. So when you can understand that, it's like, wow, where do I sabotage myself? Where do I sabotage my successes? Right? And we begin to look at those things, and all of this it's not about being right or wrong. It's not about is something good or bad, because each and every one of us has our own truth, right? And that's why I say, lie to the world. That's fine. Lie to the world. But really stop lying to yourself. And that's when you start to find that true essence of the real you that you can now become an outer expression of. It helps you to fill your inner world, fill your cup. Because when your cup is full, it runs over. And when it runs over, it does what? It ripples out to everyone that comes in contact with you. And you're going to find there's going to be a lot of shift in people that you know, because they're going to respond differently to you. Why? Because you're responding differently, to the outside world from the new database and the real you that's starting to shine. Now, will some of your what you call friends right now, will they disappear? Oh yeah, be prepared for that. And you know what? It's okay. They were there for a reason. They served the purpose. And now it's time to move on and broaden your circle of influence. And it's just that it's an influence. And that's what helps you grow. And, we're in a world now where mentors and coaches, are all there. Where before it was a counselor or a shrink, and you know what I'm talking about. We're up there in that same bracket. But, so life has really changed. And when you look at a coach or a mentor, they're there to guide you, not suppress you, but to really help you influence yourself and say, and to move through some of these challenges and these obstacles and to make sense of them. Coaches have coaches, mentors have mentors, right? And when we look at the world today, the collaboration that's going on, we look at the support groups that are taking place, and especially here in 2020, with that social distancing happening, the human element was not designed to be separated. It was designed to be connected, and the connection starts with the self, right? And so we have all this kind of excess time that really wasn't excess time. You've always had it, but it was being filled with busyness, shall we say. Well, all of a sudden now it's like all that busyness, driving here and driving there and going over there and doing this and doing that, has come to a halt. So what do we do in that spare time? And it's like, and where does your mind go? It spirals downward. Yeah. We need to recognize where the spiral is and start spiraling it this way, right? Out of hard times comes new businesses. It's becoming resourceful, right? It's really taking a look at, what are my assets? Because, each and every one of us has an asset. And that's connected to a dream. It's connected to a destiny. It's connected to what you really wanted out of life. What is your goal? What's your vision? You have all these words, but what do they mean? A lot of that has been kind of stifled, right, and pressed down. Yeah. And so how do we get our creativity back? And what I have found working with my clients is, let's go back to pretend. And that's a neutral word. Oh yeah, I can pretend all day long. But if you tell them to visualize or to dream, they're like, that's a fantasy that just doesn't compute anymore because the creativity has been so stifled. But pretending, everybody can pretend because it's safe to pretend. And when you start doing that, it shifts a lot of things. And we talked a little bit about virtual reality and working in that virtual reality world, how that so-called pretend world, how you can really get your creativity back in virtual reality. You get back into the social life because there's no social distancing there. The mind says, oh wow, there's somebody here, yay, they're right next to me, I can talk to them, they look like a human, walk like a human, talk like a human, oh my goodness, and we're sitting here in a boardroom, oh my gosh, we're over here having a cup of coffee, oh my gosh, we're down by the ocean, all of these things. There is a normalcy that comes back that gives you some peace, right?
Yeah. Oh, yes, of course. Seeing how that virtual reality worked, honestly, I could not. I have tried to describe it to some people, and what I was
You
really
can't do
surprised.
it.
It's the thing that was so surprising for me is how quickly you adapt to it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so comforting, so personal, so yeah, there's just so much to it.
Right.
I'm totally, yeah, I just loved it.
There's that old saying, seeing is believing,
Oh, yeah, that
or
so,
believe it and you will see it, right? So there's a lot of things that, hey, believe it and then you will see it, right? But I'll tell you, with virtual reality and the things that we've got going in there, because we've taken the gaming away from it and turned it back into education and entertainment and business, right?
yeah.
You have to see it, right? And that's one of the things that we've learned, too, with marketing, what we're doing. It's like, you know what, I have something special, and this is kind of the way it goes. I have something special I want to share with you. I would love for you to come in with me on a Zoom and see a demo, and then I would like your reaction and your input on how you liked what you saw. Well, you're going to get all kinds of, well, what is it? What is it? So, you know what? There's some things that just cannot be explained without seeing it first.
Yep.
And I don't want to spoil the beauty, because, oh my goodness, if I had been told or tried to describe, what was going to happen before Beverly took me on this little demo, I would have been so disappointed. I would have probably not done it. But wow, when she showed me, it was like, oh my gosh. No wonder you told me you couldn't describe it, right? So hey,
Exactly.
do you have time on this day at this time? 30 minutes of your time. If you don't, if you get in there and it's not for you, all you got to do is click and go bye-bye. It's okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not going to hold it against you, right? But that has been a really great way to invite your friends and family, to come and say, hey, come and check this out. Just check it out and give me your input, because I value that. Because I'm looking to possibly add this to my business, but I would like to see what the responses are first. Right?
Yes. Yeah. And I was surprised at, like, really at the 30 minutes, you're already going like, oh, this is normal. Like
Yeah, you feel so comfortable on the platform, don't you? It's like, wow. Because it gave, what did it give you when you were on there for 30 minutes and you felt yourself immersing into the platform and what was going on? What were some of the things that you felt when you were there?
Like really connected with the people, and I was gonna say, like, supported almost. Like, it's so relational. Like, you, I guess I know myself, I'm definitely one of those people that really likes to actually be right in the midst of it.
Right.
And that, I mean, of course you're immersed, that it totally, like, it just checks all the boxes for me. Like, I just have been trying to think of, like, oh, like, where do you start? Like,
Right.
I
Right.
there's so many choices, and it's like, what to pick. What would you start with? Because there's just so many different things as you get thinking of one that, like, I could so see doing presentations like that. I could, I think people would just love the meetings, like you say. Like, people are missing that
Right.
that connection, and to be able to do those kind of presentations and just host your groups. Like I explained to someone something about how the theater is,
Oh,
and
right.
I don't want to, what would you say? I don't want to spoil it for anyone else, but I just thought it was very cool. You know, everything about it, it's something that people just have to experience. They're going to have to join you for a demo for sure.
Exactly, exactly. You know, and when we talk about immersion, you don't need to wear the 3D glasses or 5D glasses, the Oculus, whatever you want to call them, right? The platform can be met just right on your PC, which is really kind of cool. And they're making major changes, so it's going to be like a web base. So it'll be one click and boom, you're there. But the world of Avatar, I mean, when you really look at it, your physical body, in a way, is an avatar, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You know, and so we can actually design avatars to look and resemble, you know, yourself, you know, in that real world. So there's so much that can happen, and we're building a community, and that's what DBI was all about, was building a community, right? Building a community. And how do we do that? By reaching out to people. And when you can reach out in a comfortable way and return some normalcy, some familiar things, but really the number one thing for me on the platform was feeling that connectedness. Because I'm a feely, touchy person. I want to be there. And what started this whole thing for me was, you know, I was so over this online courses and because I'm one who likes the synergism of the group, right? And the butts in the seats, the energy of having people, you know, with people, because it builds momentum and energy and power, right? And just impacts the outcome of the workshop so much more.
Yeah.
You know, that's why, you know, when you go on these 4 and 5 day retreats, you come back so refreshed and so energized and so filled, right? So working in that virtual reality, you know, and working on that capacity, it's not a cartoon character, right? This is real people with real people interacting in business or in fun, and having that social connection again, and bringing that connectedness, you know, in a group, either sitting around a campfire or being around a boardroom table where you're really masterminding a powerhouse, right? Or if you're sitting in the audience listening to a speaker up there who's giving you a lot of great information and working and interacting, you know, with you have your little breakout rooms. There's just so much that keeps you immersed in there. And you know what? You don't get the Zoom fatigue either. There's no static when you're in the virtual reality, because there's no corners like there are on Zoom or some of the other platforms, right?
Yes.
So,
And the time, that was one thing, like the time, it just goes by. So
yeah, it's like there is no time and space in there. And really, in essence, when you look at planet Earth, there is no time and space here. And all of this is an illusion, right? It's an illusion. You know, so how did this glass come into being? It was somebody's thought, somebody's design. Then they took other solid things, brought it all together to make it look like that, right? You know, so it's, where is the illusion? You know, what is the illusion? Is this reality, or is it just a virtual reality thought grouping, the same as on a virtual reality, where in virtual reality, if we want to build a big house or an apartment or a business or whatever in there, right? We can do it within just a few days. And we don't have to get permits. We don't have to do any of that, right? And we don't have electric bills. You
Mhm.
know, we don't have to drive, to get there, all of these different things. So when you look at the monies that you're saving by having a virtual reality space
Mhm.
to incorporate your business, you're saving thousands of dollars. I mean, literally thousands of dollars,
Mhm.
hours and hours of time spent driving in between here and there.
Mhm.
It really helps you be conservative, because I know right now money issues are a major because a lot of people have lost their jobs or have been cut way back.
Mhm.
You look at the food industry. Wow, they have really, really suffered.
Mhm.
Well, you know what? We have a major solution for that where we can actually design businesses
Mhm.
to really be effective in how they operate
Yeah.
in this crazy upside down planet Earth world by merging the two together, right? And so we want to talk to everybody about that, right? So if this is of interest to you at all and you just want a demo, you want to see what it's all about, nobody's going to put a gun to your head and say you got to do this. No. This is
Mhm.
a choice. This is just
Mhm.
another observation for you to look at and say, will this fit for my business?
Mhm.
Comment below. Private message me, say, Beverly, I want to get on a demo because we're going to be doing demos, every afternoon, and we have different hours that are available. So just reach out, right? And they they'll love it, won't they, Holly?
Oh, they will. Yeah. It's just it's an experience. You just have to experience it. That's all there is to it. It really it's just so amazing.
Yeah. So did you sleep that night after your demo?
Oh, very barely. Like I think only about that was a week ago. I think about 2 days ago I started actually sleeping because you'll just find there's so many ideas are going to come to you. And I think I'm going to have to just start making a big list of mine.
There you
And
go.
I honestly don't know what I would start with because there's so many options. And it just for like, especially as things don't seem to be improving a lot in this pandemic. I mean, people are already so exasperated with the fact that they
Right.
can't go anywhere, they can't see anyone, we're not supposed to be hugging.
Right.
I don't know about you, but like if I was to say what did I miss the most of in 2020, it would be hugs.
Oh,
Like I am
I don't think you're alone there. That's so true. Like I said, I'm a touchy feeling person too, and the human element is that way.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like
Yeah.
that is just I don't know, like I that's the thing on social media of all the things that I've seen people post about, I have seen more posts about hugs than
Right,
from
right. Yeah,
anything else.
I've gotten those too. It's just sending you a hug today, thinking about you, and it's like, oh, how sweet, and it
Yeah,
just warms your heart,
it does. Yeah.
yeah. And so, yeah, that connectedness. But even when things do start to straighten out, whenever that's going to be. I mean, I've heard scuttlebutt that nothing is going to be, even released, where we're going to stay in lockdown till the end of 2021. It's like, are you kidding me? But again, it's one day at a time,
Hmm.
so the world of technology is only going to get broader. It will never disappear. And now it's taking, making that choice of what we want to do and how do we make that connection better? How do we come together as a community
Hmm.
that's not static, right?
Hmm.
Thank goodness we had the Zooms and the webinars and all of that, because it really kept people seeing people.
Yes, exactly.
Now it's time to go to that next spot and say, okay, I need the community feeling. I need to be next to somebody, not in my little cubicle here and you're in your little cubicle there. It's almost like it's almost like being in jail, right?
Hmm.
Here's your little cell, and here's my little cell, and here's that little cell, and there's another little cell up above you, and there's a couple down below, right? But the static that happens with the brain, you
Mhm.
know, because of all the different movements and everything that are going on, and how the brain has to shuffle and bring it into vision. And then when someone disappears out of their little cubicle, it sends a stress release that
Mhm.
says, "Oh, where'd they go?
Mhm.
Are they? What tree are they behind?" Survival hits in, right? And it triggers those cortisols and the dopamines, and you get an overload. And that's why when you're doing a lot of back-to-back Zooms and stuff, you just like feel exhausted, your eyes hurt, you know, because of what's going on. You don't get that in virtual reality,
No.
you know, because all that static is gone, right?
And I think we have to just keep so focused on, like you say, like different things,
Right.
like they're like a day at a time, but at the same time, like you, if you come and look at one of these demos, it's going to just start so many ideas for you.
Right.
And like you just really, we need things to look forward to.
Oh,
I
that, you know, that is so powerful, because we've lost that. There's no predictability, there's no normalcy, and it's just one day at a time. And really that's all you have is the now and the one day that you have. But you still want to build on something. You know, we keep grabbing from our past. You know, it's time to say, okay, there's a lot of great things that happened in my past, and there's a lot of maybe not so great things that happened in my past. You can't change what's behind you.
exactly.
And if you don't want in front of you to look like what's behind you, the change has to happen here in the now. And that's the opportunity that we have to get to really know ourselves, become ourselves again, and not be the little puppet, you know, not having to go to that 9 to 5 that we, you know, for the most part, I mean, it's been proven. I think they said that like 60% of the people were in a job that they didn't like, and the only reason they stayed in it
Mhm.
was for the paycheck at the end of the week.
Exactly.
Well, a lot of that's been changed since 2020 hit, right? So here's your opportunity to break free and you know, really start to get resourceful. Start really
Yes.
looking at your own assets, because you do have an asset.
Mhm.
You have lots of them. And it's okay to pat yourself on the back, because if you don't start patting yourself on the back, nobody else is going to come up and say, "Hey, good job," right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just I know a lot of people think that this has been a tough year, and I agree in some ways, but really the advantages that we have reaped, I think are like way more outpowering. Like
Yes, I agree.
finding out who you need, like who should be in your network, like
Right.
who you really resonate with, all a lot of those things that you mentioned. Like one thing that I really notice is everyone's been talking about these vision boards, and do I have one? Absolutely. And do I have a few? Yes. And do I agree with the updating it? And that yeah, that hasn't changed. But the thing that really has changed for me is some of those other things that they'd say, well, you've got to get your goals down, you've got to get your values down, all this. To me, it was so, because again, I'm that experiential more person.
Right.
I just writing that down. It wasn't that I didn't think they were good ideas, but some of them I really couldn't get my head around. How do I really mix this, especially with my personal and my business?
Right.
And I just think that this year and all these opportunities to it's kind of like we've just stripped everything back, and it's just, okay, it's just us and the universe now. And we're like, okay, now there are so many opportunities here. Which one should we grab onto? You
Yeah,
know,
and again, that ties right back into that intuition, right? In that
yes.
in that feeling, we have 5 senses:
Mm-hmm.
see, touch, taste, smell, and hear. And then there's what they call that sixth sense, which is your intuition. But all 5 of the other senses gather together to move into that intuition,
Mm-hmm.
right? So listen to yourself. How do I feel about this? Well, how does that sound? You know, that's not tasting so good with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so all of these things are, what type of personality are you? Which of your senses, which of those 5 senses impact you the most in your conversation, in your belief in who you are, right? What is the kinetic for you, right? So that helps us to really begin to understand who we are and why we relate to some people, you know. And so when you're in a conversation with someone, you need to listen for those words that ignite one of those senses. You know, so if you're talking to someone that you're looking to assist, whether you're a coach or a mentor, or if you're trying to sell them something or whatever, you need to lead with that. Because if you have someone who is visual, I see it, I got it, right? And you're talking about, well, how does that sound? They don't relate to hearing, they relate to seeing. So, yeah. So did you hear what that was? Did you hear what I said? No. Because they're not that sensory. Now, when you start talking to them about, you know, seeing it, wow. Or how did that feel? They didn't feel anything. Why? Because they're seeing it. So did you catch the vision? Oh my gosh, did I catch the vision? Are you kidding me? My brain's running all over here. I'm seeing this and that and da 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 da, right? So it's kind of like those personality tests, because the personality tests do bring in those senses. And one thing in that virtual reality world, all of those senses are like heightened. You know, and another neat thing too, Holly, that I want to mention in the virtual reality world is that it puts you into like a calming state. So you're in the alpha level, you get up in that theta creating state, because it puts you in a peace, right? And the playing ground is all neutral, which is really nice. So all inhibitions go away, and you feel safe and comfortable, which is really awesome. You know, and the mental health institutions have been using virtual reality for about 30 years. But in the last 10 years, they're working even stronger. And in the last 5 years, they've come up with some major programs working around phobias and fears and PTSDs and anxieties. And right now, anxiety has been on the rise for a lot of years, right? But they're also looking at how the mind works with the neurotransmitters. We get into some deep science here. You know, it's like your electrical currents in the brain that have to fire into different avenues and in different sections of the brain where you store information. Right? So when anxiety takes over, PTSDs, depressions, and all that takes over, that firing mechanism is not going where it's supposed to go. And so they're finding that in the virtual reality world, that you can reconnect and you can fire into those avenues of the brain.
Okay.
That is like fascinating to me, because I'm all about the science on these things, right? And when you look at intuition, you know, I've had intuition all of my life, you know, and it's built up stronger and stronger. When I had an understanding of what it was, which in the early 80s I took a course called Silva Mind Control. And when I finished that, it's like the explanations, like you were saying, you know, all of a sudden, you know, when you're paying attention to your intuition, the rest of your life started making sense, right? And it's like, oh, well, now that explains that. That explains that. I get it, right? I get it. You know, so when you reach that, it gets more and more exciting, right?
Yep.
You know, so you put all these pieces together. So virtual reality does have a role. And now, especially with this upside down world, it can really make a difference in that time and space. And you look at kids, you know, I mean, if you have kids, Where do they want to be? They want to be on those games, right? Well,
Exactly.
that repetition, that begins to be their truth and stuff. So, what are they watching? What are they watching? That's the element now, right? And so, and again, oh my goodness, schools and how our kids are being taught today. Kids learn differently. I mean, even at our age, right? I mean, we're up in the baby boomer era, right?
Yep.
And how we were taught back then, it didn't work then. What makes you think it's going to work now in this world of technology? Ha! Not so much, right? And the millenniums, the what do they call them? The Z's or whatever. When we're looking at so if we look at the last 3 generations that have come into play, they're looking for that communication. They're looking for that interaction. That's why the gaming is so huge. And then you look at motion pictures, right?
Yep.
You know, there's not as much out there now. The ones that are having the biggest sales are what? The animated. So more and more animation is coming into that world. It has been for what, 10 years or so, right?
Yes.
You know, so when you look at virtual reality, it's animation come to life in your business world, in your educational world, in your fun world, in your entertainment world, and, you know, in your health world.
Yeah.
Because the mind relates to that. That is reality and that is truth. You know, so combining and merging those two worlds together, we're going to come out of 2020 in an awakening that will just blow your mind, right? And that's why when you see the demos of what we've done here in virtual reality, and you'll really start to understand why that connection happens. It's because that's how the mind actually processes. It processes in pictures, you know. So think about it. When you go to get your driver's license, right? There's an area that says, you know, what does this sign mean? And it, you know, so it's the shape of a stop sign. It doesn't say stop on it, but it asks you, what is this sign? Everybody knows what a stop sign is. It's a universal language. Pictures are universal languages, right? You know, a railroad sign, everybody knows, even if it doesn't have RR, they know what it means.
Yes.
You know, if you have a circle and you have a picture in there and it has a line through it, everybody knows that off limits, right? So there's no misunderstanding when it comes to visuals, to pictures. So you talk about your vision board. It's all done in pictures, right? Because the mind processes truth in pictures. In pictures, not in words. One word can change the definition of the whole sentence. And in that same sentence, it's how you read it, and do you put more accent on this word versus this word? It'll mean something different. Then if you shift it off of this word and put it onto that one, it means something different. The first half of the sentence and the second half, you know, all of these things take place in the verbal communication.
Yes. Yep.
But pictures, there's no confusion, right? You know, so there is a science behind so many things that we take for granted, right?
Yes. And, you know, like I actually hadn't thought so much about how all the senses are being catered to, in a way, I guess you'd say, in the virtual reality. Yes.
Right.
That really is a really, because otherwise you're always, like you say, it's either the visual, the hearing, whatever.
Right.
We're all, very much that I think is well, I've been trying to think of all the different parts. As I said, like, I'm just going like, oh my goodness, I'm stuck on the ideas, but yeah, like tapping into all those senses. Yeah. Like, I mean, it's going to appeal to everyone.
Right.
In some capacity, right?
Exactly. Whether you're a participant
Yeah.
or whether you're the entrepreneur, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. And sometimes you're going to play both roles, right?
Mhm.
You know,
Exactly.
so when you do come to a demo, which I know you guys will, so comment down here and say demo, right? And we'll get you set up. But you know, so Holly, when you're thinking about all these crazy ideas that aren't crazy ideas because they will come into reality, you know, write them down, make your list, right? Then reach out. You know, don't get lost in that.
No.
Because a confused mind, a lost mind says nothing. It stops action. And that's the last thing you want to do is stop action. So it's like, okay, I've got all these ideas. Now it's time to go over, connect with me and Robert again, and we'll say, okay, describe your business. Where do you want your business to go? Now share one idea, and we'll show you how to fit that into that puzzle. Okay. Now give us the next idea, and then we'll fit that in, and then give us the next idea, and then we'll fit that in, and then when you give us another idea, say, you know what? Before we go put that idea on the back burner. Let's get these going first. That will automatically then play out in itself, right? So we will take all of that because it's a lot. Your brain just keeps going, woo, right? And it's exciting. But we don't want you to get lost in that. We want the action to continue, right? We don't want you to get lost in the thought of it. And start really putting those pieces together. Start seeing it come to life in the virtual reality. And when you start seeing those ideas come to life on the big screen, so to speak, right? Wow. You know.
Yeah, no, I will do that for sure. Like it just gets me so excited just talking about it again.
I know. It's same here, you know. It's like, oh, it's like, yeah, okay,
Like,
let's talk about it. It's like a kid in a candy store. Which piece do I want? See, I want that one, I want that one, I want this one, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when we've been struggling with not going places, just wait till you start going places on here.
And that's I like that you said that, because we can take you on a vacation. You know, so let's just say you always wanted to go to see the pyramids in Egypt, right? But you never got there. Now, to even fly out of the country, that's questionable, right? And then where you do go, it's questionable whether you can see it or not, right?
Yes.
But by coming onto the platform reality world, it takes you there. You know, and another thing, if let's just say maybe you have a handicap. You know, maybe you're in a wheelchair, or maybe you're bedridden. You know what? Virtual reality gives you the opportunity to run and play with everybody. You can climb that mountain you've always dreamed of climbing. You can go swimming you've always dreamed of doing. You can jump in the ocean. You can fly a plane. You can do all of these things. That's so neat about it, because it's all neutral playing ground. And they have found, you know, too, that those that have had some challenges with this physical skin bag, once they're immersed onto the platform, their lives have changed. Their energy level has shifted. It's like, wow, this becomes their real world, because it's giving them an opportunity to experience things that they didn't before. Now they can attend a workshop that they wanted to go to. They have their favorite teacher. Let's use Tony Robbins as an experience, because everybody knows Tony Robbins, right?
Exactly. Yep.
But you know, if you're in a position financially or physically, you know, incapacitated to be able to get there and make it cost effective, now, so let's just say Tony's got his space on virtual reality and he's doing this marvelous workshop. Well, guess what? You can go You've got your little avatar. He runs and jumps and talks and everything, and you're interacting. Now you can be right there in the audience with everybody else and really be there. Right? How cool is that?
Oh, yeah, totally. Like, yeah, you're just right. Yeah, right in it. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's there's so many options. Okay, so now you reminded me of something. And so now what I'm wondering, and of course I know this is a scientific medical kind of question, and I don't know if you know the answer to it, but I'm just really curious. So is there any research that shows that if you actually participate in something like this, say you are physically limited somehow,
Right.
maybe you're working on, like, maybe it's something that you're having trouble walking, but you're working on it, but you're not quite there yet. But if you were to join this virtual reality and experience there, is there any research that would
Yes,
show
there's tons of research.
they improve and they can
Yes.
walk, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I knew
Yes.
you were going to say yes.
Yes, there's a lot of research done on that, and people have done that, you know, and it's a great way to do exercises, and we can talk about that at another time. But we're coming up here on the hour, Holly. My gosh.
Goodness. Wow, that went really
I
fast.
know, it did. It did. So, one little morsel that you can leave with the audience before we call this a show. What would you tell the audience?
You know, it's so important to do a couple of things. I would totally tap into your intuition. If you don't know what it is, get some help in reaching it, and absolutely look into virtual reality. Like, it is an experience like no other. You won't regret it. Totally embrace it. It's just so exciting. I just can hardly keep myself tied down.
Yes, and we hear that all the time. And you know what? That's the response we get following the demos. So, demo away down here. And Holly, thank you so much for being here. It was an honor having you on the show again. And let's go out and do what? Let's go out and be that best you that you can be, because Holly and I, we're going to be the best we that we can be.
We
Bye,
are,
everybody.
for sure. Thank you so much, Beverly.
Oh, it was an honor.
I know.